Let me start the recording and then I can start. So welcome again. Today's program is Seven Star of Hinduism, A Peaceful Green World by Dilip Thatte. Before I hand over the control to Mr. Dilip Thatte, let me introduce him. Dilip is a student of science, spirituality, and Vedanta. He is a trained Hindu chaplain. He was recognized by Forum of Hindu Awakening with Vishwa Hindu Ratna Award in 2010. He routinely talks at high school, universities, colleges, churches, mosques, temples, synagogues, and multi-faith congregations. He has represented Hinduism and presented papers at the Parliament of World Religions in Australia and Utah. He is associated with the non-profit organization Seven Star Foundation, which is engaged in promoting peace through interfaith education leading to understanding. He has been a senior executive for major global corporations and has traveled extensively worldwide. An alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad, India, he has a master's degree in chemical engineering and an MBA, which is Masters of Business Administration. He currently works at the National Institute of Standards and Technology and is focused on innovation and growth of manufacturing sector in USA. He is also a certified executive leadership coach who is active in coaching senior executives in US corporations, non-profits, and the federal government. I now hand over the control to Mr. Dilip Thapte.
Thank you. Thank you, Aniruddha. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so everybody can hear me. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dilip. I sincerely thank you for joining this session. Beautiful day here in Maryland, and you are investing about an hour and a half of your time. We will make it well worth it. Today's presentation will be, I'll present a few slides and some explanation, and then we will have some open question and answer and some discussion, the usual format. I want to start off with thanking the Marathi Kala Mandal, the executive, and also particularly Rajani Joglekar, who is in charge of the Uttarang, and Aniruddha Bhakre, who is the president of MKM, for giving me this opportunity and organizing such excellent talks and programs. Today's topic is 7 Stars of Hinduism, and let's get to the topic. And we will make it fun. We'll make it informative. Amongst us, there are a number of visitors who are non-Marathi, and there are some young people, I was told, in the audience. So we will stick to English. But those of you in the question and answer, if you want to have some discussion in Marathi or Hindi, I'm okay with that. But we'll stick to most of the discussion in English. With that, let me get started. For the benefit of our next generation, good morning, buenos dias, and bonjour. One of the things I would like to request is those of you who are extremely knowledgeable about Hinduism, please wear a cap of a 22-year-old person who's born and raised here. I give you this permission to get down in your age to 20 or 25, put on the baseball cap, and think that you were born and raised here in the United States, and you got exposure to Hinduism from what you see, the temples, the festivals, and of course, you are interacting with the American friends and neighbors. With that as in your mind, take a look at the 7 Stars of Hinduism. and you will get a lot more out of it. Those of you who are less than 12, 13-year-old, you may have to stretch a little bit of your maturity to understand, but nevertheless, we will have fun. Um, Benefits. One of the things I always feel that people are investing their time, what's in it for them? Let me give you a little bit of a background, and I have a similar background as most of you have. We have a very rich, we meaning the Hindus, we have a very rich philosophical heritage which promotes universal brotherhood and peace. It's there everywhere. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and peace is everywhere, and that needs to be emphasized. That's very appealing to the next generation. Our faith addresses all aspects of human life: physical, mental,
This time
intellectual, and
meeting ID
spiritual.
दिली तर आलं बघ.
Intellectual and spiritual well-being of a person. So all aspects of your personality are addressed by our faith. We live in a very multicultural environment. We all know we live in a predominantly Judeo-Christian environment. Our neighbors are Christians or Jews, and they become very good friends with us. Um, we should be able to, John Brown or a Jane Smith next door to you asks you that, hey, we've been good friends, we've been good neighbors. Can you tell me in a nutshell, what are the core beliefs of your religion? You are a Hindu. Many of us have very difficult time articulating precisely, succinctly, what are the core tenets of our religion. We know a lot about it, but articulation and extraction of the key tenets is very difficult. And then general answer is, oh, ours is a way of life. I think that's an escapist answer, because every religion is a way of life. Islam is a way of life, Christianity is a way of life, and all religions essentially started to establish harmony in that specific society and that specific period. So it is a way of life, but we pass it off that it's a way of life. So this 7 stars of Hinduism will allow you to succinctly articulate exactly what are the core tenets of your faith or my faith. It is also the third largest practiced religion in the world. This, even if nobody is interested in Hinduism or religion, the fact is that it is the third largest practiced religion. As an educated individual, one has to know what are the core tenets of this religion. And even for that reason, if you can communicate and educate your neighbors and your children about Hinduism, that's a great leap. Multi-faith marriages. This is very prevalent in these days. Many of our children are married outside faith, which is fine and which is likely to happen even more and more. Your grandchildren in that category, they will be even more so. So one of the parents, if the child of your children who are married into other faith, if that child not automatically gets exposure to the Christian faith because it is most widely practiced in this country, and the child is an American, it's he or she is growing up here, they are bound to know about Christianity. But if the one parent, mother or father, who is a Hindu, if they are unable to communicate and articulate and pass on the key tenets, not just the puja and the part and the festivals, but the key tenets of Hinduism, that child is being deprived of a very rich thought process, of a rich heritage, which that child has inherited. So it is our obligation almost to pass on this rich heritage in a nutshell, in a succinct fashion, to our children. Our religious literature, if explained properly, is extremely, extremely appealing to the younger generation. I speak at high schools in Maryland. They invite me as a guest speaker when in one of their world religion classes. And typically what happens to assess the composition of the class, I normally ask, how many students belong to Christian faith, how many to Islamic faith, Buddhist faith, Hindu faith, and typically majority are belong to the Christian faith. Some belong to the Muslim faith, and predominantly it's Christian, and one or two Jewish faith. But these days, what I'm noticing, one of my last questions is, how many don't believe in any faith? And these days, almost 20 to 30% of the kids in the class, these are grade 12 kids. They are not small. They're not very young. They're young adults. They're 18-year-old, 16 to 18-year-olds. They almost 20 to 30% of these kids, they say that we don't belong. We don't believe in any faith. It's amazing. And anyway, that's fine. It was just to establish the composition. I present my 7 stars. I tell them what are the core tenets and what our beliefs are. And after the presentation, there is normally a question and answer. And invariably, I get some questions from kids who have raised their hands as those who belong to no faith, asking me that, hey, I believe in every one of those tenets that you mentioned. Does that make me a Hindu? One girl last year in the class asked me, I believe in what you just said because I didn't believe in any faith, but I believe in the concepts that you presented. Does that make me a Hindu? And how can I become a Hindu? It's amazing how appealing these concepts are. At the question and answer, and later, if this comes up again, I'll give you a little more details about how was that question handled and what was my response. But for that, you'll have to wait until the end of the session. Your knowledge and articulation and simplification of the concepts is important. And of course, your love makes you the best teacher. So my request, appeal to all of you is absorb in the 7 stars of Hinduism. Modify if necessary as you find it appropriate. But by all means, please do communicate these concepts, the core concepts, to your children, your grandchildren, the best way you can, so that they benefit from their rich heritage. Typically, and this is not I'm going to share with you an unscientific survey I've done over the years. These are some of the myths about Hinduism. Fatalistic. तेरे हाथ में क्या है बेटा, पिछले जन्म के कर्म का फल है. It's all predetermined. निमित्त मात्र तू है, कर्ता कर्विता मिया है. These are the kind of comments that we have grown, we've grown with in India. Polytheistic. Many of you know the answer to this, but there is still significant belief amongst non-Hindus as well as Hindus that we have lots of gods. Renunciation. Jaga ye mithya hai. This is a mirage. What is there in this world? You renounce everything because this is ephemeral, short-lived. Caste system. Once you are born into a given caste, that's it. You are stuck, man. There's no way you can move on. And all of these are myths. They are propagated over a period of time by people who did not understand it right or deliberately caused friction within the society in order to cause friction within the society, have propagated it. But these are all myths. And today's session, we will break these myths. And you need to address these for the benefit of your younger generation, next generation, as well as your neighbors, so that they understand what is true Hinduism about. All this makes it very confusing. The confusing part is that, and I've done this casual survey. If you ask about 10 Christians, what are the core tenets of Christianity, they will say that Jesus was the Son of God, you believe in Jesus, you go to heaven. If you ask 10 Muslims, they will all tell you, regardless of the denomination, Shia, Sunni, Ismaili, whatever, they'll tell you the 5 pillars of Islam, which are well known. And Quran is the holy book, and Prophet Muhammad is the last Muhammad. You ask 10 Hindus, what are the core tenets of Hinduism? You get 8 different answers, probably 10 different answers. And none of them are wrong, but there is no consistency. Now, if your Jane Smith has two neighbors and she asks what are the core tenets of your religion, they both are Hindus, she might hear two different things. Your children may different things from different uncles and aunties. And this can be confusing. And confusion causes one of two things. Either believe people say that there's no consistency, so this religion probably doesn't have anything major to say about, or they shy away and they say, I have nothing to do with it. And to avoid that, I have extracted these 7 stars from the Upanishads. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on that. So what is my approach, or what is our approach? Because, and the reason I say our is because initially about 12, 13 years ago, 15 years ago almost, I extracted these concepts and then I tested them with a number of educated people, professors, swamis, and tested them out. And they all have blessed it by saying that I have packed the real core tenets in a very compact way, so that the whole religion is explained. And that's why I call it our approach, because a lot of input has come from the younger generation as well as the educated ones. So our approach was to simplify the framework, standardize it, so that this core foundational tenets are known to everybody and they can articulate them. Systematize them. There's a lot of confusion between philosophy, practices, festivals, rituals, and religion comprises of all of these things. So how do you systematize so that you segregate the components, and a child or a 15-year-old, 20-year-old understand, oh, this is philosophy, but it's practiced by this auntie this way, and this uncle by this way, and this neighbor this way, and it's okay. But the core remains the same. Stimulate interest in the youth, and socialize. Socializing is communicating and popularizing the concepts. So this is my approach. Um, we will talk about the composition of a religion, then of course the 7 stars, and how each of those stars is relevant to today's life here in the United States. If time permitting, I have a list of practices that one can do which are in line with this core, and then of course we will have more time for question and answer. I want to share with you this picture, the reason being you can see who were the people representing Hinduism at the Parliament of World Religions. And I have a lot of respect for these people. They are very well known, they are very well read, they're educated, and I have reference for them. But ladies and gentlemen, for me, Hinduism is practiced and should be taught by an individual like you and me. That is what the beauty of this religion is. We don't have to have saffron. We don't have to be celibate. We don't have to give up everything in order to practice and teach and educate Hinduism. Hinduism allows you, in fact, encourages you to live life fully. But the image of Hinduism is, if you want to hear about Hinduism, you talk to a Swami, you listen to a Swami or a Maharaj. And the other thing is that even because we grew up in India, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of our elders, they will go to a lecture if it is by somebody, Swami so-and-so Nanda, with saffron clothes, but they will not go to a regular human being who has had family, who has had to deal with teenagers. And he tells you that how he has been able to handle the challenges of life using Hinduism. But so I want to break that, and that's why I wanted to give you some idea about this picture. High school I mentioned. Here are some of the pictures of the kids in the high school. You can see that they are young adults. They're not really kids. Let's get to the typical composition of religion. I'm very proud of this model. I was in Austin, Texas speaking, and one of my friends introduced me, and he says, my background, as you heard, I'm an engineer and also an MBA and a business person. So while introducing me, he said, Dilip has analyzed the religion like an analytical engineer, and he has packaged it like a marketer. And so this in management, we always create a model. And I've created this model, and I'm very proud of it because it's a universal model. And I have used this model to explain 8 religions of India at one of the conferences in England when I was invited to speak there. And some of you probably are wondering, what are the 8 religions being practiced in India? Unfortunately, we don't have interactive session in terms, this is a virtual session. So I will assume that some of you are wondering, the 3 Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the 4 dharmic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. That makes it 7, and Zoroastrianism. These are the 8 most commonly used practiced religions in India. And I've used this model to explain all of them. But anyway, be that as it may, the typical composition of a religion comprises of, the outer layer comprises of rituals, rites, festivals, and practices. Rituals are, practices come from social and family tradition. People have Ganpatis, people have Gauris, people have different practices, religious practices in their families, and they come through tradition, family tradition. Rituals are the Satyanarayan Puja and some of the other rituals, Gauri Puja, that people are involved with. Some of the rituals involve, how do you do the puja? What is the prasad made out of? What do you do to get a a deity, be pleased with you? And some of the rituals have scientific reason. Some of them are social reason, so that you can get together. Some of them have cultural reason. Some of them are symbolic reasons. I'll give you an example of a scientific reason. In South, there is a process, there is a ritual called Toppu Karnam. Toppu Karnam is what they do is they use their hands to hold the lower lobe of your ear, and they do sit-ups in front of Ganesh. So even in Maharashtra, in some places, this is how they do it during the Ganesh Puja. That they'll go to the Ganesh, and in front of Ganpati, they will hold their ears cross hand. So the right hand holds the left ear lobe, and the left hand holds the right earlobe, and then they do sit-ups, and they do 21 sit-ups. So the reason I'm telling you this, it's called Thappu Karnam in Tamil. And recently, it has been about 7-8 years ago, they have studied this phenomena. Yale neurobiology department studied it and found that, and they did some MRIs of the brains in a control group, those who did this and those who did not do this. So it was a very controlled experiment. And they found out that this particular action of 21 times up and down sit-ups, holding the earlobes in that fashion, caused an improved balance between the left and the right brain, sides of the brain. And these are captured on the MRI. They are statistically significant. And some teachers or special ed teachers have been using this practice to teach and calm down some of the autistic children in their classes. And this is also recorded. This is evidence. It was on CBS News. and this was before the fake news was fake news. This is true. In fact, there is a Korean guy who has uh, formalized this practice, and he calls it brain yoga. It's a yoga for the brain. Try and Google it, brain yoga on CBS, and you will get a 5 or 6 minute clip, and you will have a lot of information. The point I'm trying to make is some of our rituals, we don't know why they started, but we haven't even studied whether there is any impact or not. We just accepted them, or sometimes we just reject them. I'm saying that we should look into it, and some of them probably do not make any sense at all, in which case they should be eliminated. But there are some rituals which do make sense. Rites are rites of passage. Every religion has them, and so does Hinduism. The thread ceremony is one of them, marriage, and things like that. And festivals, of course, the festivals are festivals, and they are very time sensitive and location sensitive. What I'm getting at is all of these are time and location and family sensitive. Onam is celebrated in the south. In the north, they don't even know about Onam. They are all Hindus. Uh, Baisakhi is celebrated in the north. In the south, they don't even know about it. They are still all of them are Hindus. So, what is it that is not time sensitive or location sensitive, which is a part of the religion? So you go to the core, start heading towards the core. The next comes the values. Values in Sanskrit and Hindi and Marathi are called mulya. Mulya values are there which will allow you to live in a society properly. Values always direct an individual to be socially conscious. Chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita has the first three shlok. Sri Krishna enumerates over 27 values. Starts with Abhayam Sattva Sanshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti Danam Damasya Yajnasya Swadhyayas Tapa Arjavam, and it goes on and on. Very beautiful shlok. If you get a chance, look at it. These are all the values. And most of the since most of the religions started to establish harmony in the society during the period when they started, the values seem to be overlapping with each other. I just identified or extracted 7, but as I said, that there are over 25 values, 27 values Sri Krishna has mentioned in the 16th chapter. So as you can see from this list of values, many of the values are similar in Christianity. They are similar in Judaism. Some are more emphasized than others. Charity is very much emphasized in Christianity and dictated in Christianity through teeth, whereas self-control or non-violence, ahimsa, is very much emphasized in Hindu religion. But these are all the values. So values are an integral part of the religion, but they are very overlapping. So people say, well, all religions teach the same, but that is not the case. Now, by the way, I want to make a comment here that the three of the largest practice religions are Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. And of course, the Buddha come the next. And in order to drive a point, I make comparisons of Hinduism with Christianity or Islam. And the intention is essentially to drive home a point or make a point, not to compare and say one is better than the other. It is the choice of the individual who's listening to me to decide what they want to decide. But I will compare once in a while the Abrahamic religions to the Dharmic religions. And the Abrahamic religions, I call them Judaism, Christianity, Islam, are the Abrahamic religion because they emanated from Father Abraham, and that's why they're called Abrahamic religions. And Dharmic religions are the Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and because they are called Dharma, they are from the basis is Dharma. So we get a little bit closer to moksha. I'm sorry, the from the values we go closer to goals in life. Uh, I'm sorry, I should go back and demonstrate goals in life. You can see that very clearly, but goals in life, what are the goals in life in Hinduism? For example, what are the goals in life in Christianity? Believe in Jesus so that he can forgive you and you go to heaven, one life to live. What are the goals in life for according to Hinduism? Is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma is the righteousness. Dharma has 37 meanings in Sanskrit, depending upon the context. So in this case, we take dharma as righteousness, social consciousness, and duty based on the role and stage in life. Um, you operate by dharma. It is the operating principle. It's like computer. Every computer has an operating system. Dharma is our operating system. As long as you operate by dharma, then artha, which is the material wealth and security, and kama, which is the physical pleasure, they are fair ball. Hinduism does not stop you from enjoying life, both materially as well as physically. Good food, good music. In fact, we sense of touch. We wrote Kama Sutra for God's sake. So our religion says as long as you live by dharma, artha and kama is fair ball. There is nothing wrong in becoming wealthy. Um, One of the things quoted from Bible is it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. That is not the message of Hinduism. Hinduism says as long as you operate by dharma, it's fair ball to be wealthy. And ultimate goal is moksha. Moksha is union with the Brahman. We will get to that a little bit later. But so essentially, Rigveda's basic teachings are Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya. Means take the Atma. Atma should head for the moksha while helping the world. This is also the motto of, I think, Ramakrishna Mission. So goals in life, now goals in life are rather non-changing. However, the definition of some of the goals or some of the aspects of the goals are time sensitive. For example, Artha during the time of Yajnavalkya was probably 1,000 heads of cows and several thousand acres of land. Whereas today it may be a good portfolio of stocks and bonds and an apartment in DC or in New York or whatever. So it is time sensitive. The definitions are time sensitive, although the concepts are there. What is it that is not time sensitive, which is not location sensitive, which is the same all across the world, wherever you go, and which will remain the same? These are the core tenets, and that is what we're going to focus on. And unfortunately, that's what gets completely eclipsed by the rituals and practices. If you notice that majority, 80 to 90% of the effort and the money and the activity in all the temples in North America are spent on the outermost periphery of practices, rituals, rites, and festivals. And there is movement towards spending more and more time and devoting more time towards the core tenets, but they get eclipsed. And many of our young generational people, they get turned off because they don't see the core tenets or philosophical teachings. And whereas our religion is full of it. And that's my attempt, or our attempts going to be to bring this out into the open. So these core tenets are considered to be eternal in nature. They are the foundation of a religion. They're not time or society sensitive. They're religion specific. Okay, let's go to the 7 stars basis. Shankaracharya school of thought. All of you know about Shankaracharya. And I have adopted his school of thought of Sankhya Yoga philosophy, which is also in Bhagavad Gita, and Advaita philosophy. Although I am not hung up on the Advaita, the only thing I want to emphasize is there is a non-duality between Atman and Brahman. It may or may not be pure Advaita or Vishishta Advaita, and it's based on Shruti. So let me, I'll talk about that a little bit later, but based on Shruti. And a lot of people, including myself, when I started studying this, I did not distinguish between Shruti, Smriti, and Purana. They were all equally important to me. And until I started studying and then realized that Shruti literature is the eternal truth. The Smriti literature is subordinate to the Shruti literature. And let us be aware of it. And because there is a reason why we need to be aware of this. Shruti comprises of Ved or Upanishads. And Upanishads, as you know, are a part of Ved, and Upanishads are a part of the Ved, and Brahma Sutra, Badrayanas, and Bhagavad Gita. These are three considered to be Prasthana Traya. That means these are the foundational texts of Hindu religion, and they form the Shruti literature. Bhagavad Gita is an exception, but still, I will explain that to you. They don't have, okay, let me explain the Bhagavad Gita part. Bhagavad Gita is that part of Mahabharata, which is written by Vyas, that it is so true to the Upanishadic teachings, and it has extracted so much of essence from the Upanishads that it has gotten elevated as an Upanishad. So even Bharganath Tira calls it Gita-Upanishad, and it is called Gita-Upanishad. So Bhagavad Gita, although it is a part of the Smriti literature, because it is written by Vyas, it is a part of Itihas, Mahabharata, just that portion of Mahabharata, which is Bhagavad Gita, has been upgraded to a Shruti status, and it's a part of the Prasthana Traya. So Ved, Upanishad, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita to me form the Shruti literature. There is, what is the characteristic? There is no specific author. Ved, Upanishad don't have an author. Brahma Sutra is put together by Badrayan, but he has picked up the concepts from all across all the texts, religious texts. It's I call it a collective wisdom of the realized souls, which were rishis. They were spiritual scientists. They realized, and it was a collected knowledge of the realized souls. You can Bhagavad Gita I mentioned, you can call it word of God, because these rishis, they were realized souls, and it's also referred to as Auparusheya, which means it is not written by an individual, and it's very deep. The Ved, Upanishad, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita. Now, what is Smriti literature? It is considered to be subordinate to Shruti, and it is written by individuals. So Manu wrote Manusmriti. Manusmriti is Manu's interpretation of Shruti literature as he thought it was appropriate at his time. So it has time sensitivity, and it was a subjective. What he thought was how society should live was at that time. And today people fight and kill each other over Manusmriti, because Manu has written things about women which is not acceptable to you. But one should recognize that Manusmriti does not define Hinduism. Manusmriti only says Manu's interpretation, what he thought was Hinduism at the time that he existed. The same Manu who is blamed for making women dependent upon the husband, first the father, then the husband, then the son, also says that wherever, in whichever house the husband, the wife is happy, is a happy household. And that is true today as it was then. The same Manu says, Panchavarshe ladaye, Dashavarshe tadaye, Sodash varshe prapte, Putram mitra vadachare. That means for first 5 years, you baby and pamper the child. The next 10 years, you discipline the child. When the child reaches the age of 16, treat the child as a friend. Isn't that applicable today as it was then? So one has to take it in context, and Smriti literature should be taken in context, that it is written by an individual. There's Yajnavalkya Smriti, there's Manu Smriti, there's Narad Smriti, there are a whole bunch of Smritis. In fact, I for one feel that one of you should write a Smriti based on today's time and today's living in the United States, and give it your name. Uh, Purana, Itihas are other part of the Smriti literature. Itihas is Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Puranas are the stories. Now, all the stories in Puranas are not true. They are there. Some of them are embellished. Some of them are made up. Some of them may be partially true. But they were there to teach certain lessons. And the reason it's important for you to understand that is because people make fun of Hinduism, especially when I go into the interfaith gatherings. I hear people making comments which are so ridiculous based on Puranas and Itihas, Puranas essentially. And there's nothing wrong with the Puranas. There's a lot of truth, a lot of knowledge packed into the Puranas, but it has to be taken in the right context. So I want you to be aware of the distinction between Shruti and Smriti. And when you go to what is Hinduism, you go to Shruti literature. How it can be explained, how it can be made into fun, how it can be made into interesting stories, then you go to the Smriti literature. How it should be interpreted in this time, then you go to the Smriti literature. So what are the core benefits of, I'm keeping an eye on the time, and in a few minutes we should, 4 core principles. Brahman, which is one God, Atman Brahman, non-duality, universality of soul, and law of karma. And then 3 paths to liberation or moksha, path of intellect, which is Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. And Patanjali's Raja Yoga, which is a fantastic blueprint for self-improvement and self-relaxation as well as self-growth, will be helpful for all of these paths. Today, we are going to cover the first 4, and then later in the month, I have one lecture dedicated to Karma Yoga, one to Bhakti Yoga, and one to Jnana Yoga. So let's start with the first 4. Number 1, star. And these, by the way, these form my 7 stars. And let me explain before I forget, why do I call them stars? In a lot of religions, especially the Abrahamic religions, have a dogma that you have to do this, you cannot do this. Hinduism is not very dogmatic. It is not very prescriptive. It does not prescribe you should do this or you should not do this. It basically says if you do this, this is likely to happen. It's your choice. So when I identified 7 key concepts, I said, what do I call them? Pillars, steps. Christianity has commandments, but I felt that none of them suited the concepts of Hinduism. And I felt that just like the 7 stars in the Ursa Major constellation in the sky can direct you to what is the north, to the North Pole. And you can use those 7 stars to direct yourself to the North Pole. And once you know the north, you know the rest of the directions. Similarly, these 7 stars will allow you to navigate yourself through life to the direction that you want to go. It's your choice. You want to use it, these 7 stars, it's your choice. If you don't want to use it and chase your own tail, that's your choice. And that's why I call it 7 stars rather than pillars or steps or commandments or any of that sort. So that is the genesis of 7 stars of Hinduism. Brahman. Brahman is different than, as you know very well, Most of you probably are well familiar with this concept of Brahma, Brahmin, and Brahman. For the younger people, I have to explain to them Brahma is a deity, Brahmin is a type of person who engages in certain activities and of teaching and praying, and Brahman is universal consciousness. It is life force. It's free of attributes, nirgun, nirakar. It's non-judgmental. This is very important. It is non-judgmental, and it can be called the ultimate truth, the infinite intellect, and infinite bliss, Satchitanand. Non-judgmental is very difficult for people to accept, but Upanishadic Brahman is non-judgmental. Um, the closest example I give is that of gravity. Is gravity good or bad? Gravity is neither good nor bad. Can you jump off the building and if you jump off the building, you will break your leg. If you jump off a cliff with a skydiving gear, you will have a beautiful view of the valley. It is the same gravity. In one case, it broke your leg. It was very bad. In the other case, it gave you a great pleasure of scenery, and it was great. So gravity is neither good nor bad. It is your interaction with the gravity which fetched you favorable or unfavorable result. I'm not even saying good and bad results because that is a judgment. It's favorable or unfavorable results. Similarly, Brahman exists whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not. It's your interaction with the Brahman, the universal force, the universal consciousness, which fetches you result, favorable or unfavorable result. And that interaction is what we call karma. So it is the karma which fetches you the favorable or unfavorable results. So Brahman, in fact, Brahma Sutra says that Vaishamnyana Grunnema Sapekshitvat Tathahi Darshayati. That means Brahman neither favors you nor punishes you. What happens to you is a result of karma. Bhagavad Gita says the same thing. A lot of places in the literature, in the Upanishads, that is mentioned. So it is non-judgmental. You may call it God, and it is not just force. People use the word force, but force has been captured in formulas. Consciousness is one level beyond force. Force and energy is a part of consciousness, but consciousness is a lot more than that. Right now, physicists, theoretical physicists, are slowly scratching at the concept of consciousness through the quantum mechanics, but we are not there yet. Then if Brahman is Nirgun Nirakar, what is Ishvara? Ishvara is the manifestation or symbol, manifestation of Brahman for our convenience. We are born and raised in a world with limits. So we need something physical to focus on, most of us. You can't see me, but if you see me, if I hold my finger here and ask you to focus on that, you can focus on that. If I take it off, you'll start focusing on my nose, because for a focus, you need some kind of an object, because we grew up in the world of limits. At some point in time, you may reach a level where you can go beyond that. But for the time being, to begin with, you do need something to focus on. And that is the manifestation of the Brahman. That is the symbolism. That's the extraction of Brahman into that particular thing. And those are the deities. Those are the several forms of deities. And you may call it Dev, you may call it God, you may call it deity, but that is what the deities are. And these are personal choices. And that is what the Ishvara is. A lot of our kids get confused between so many deities. How come we have so many deities? There are two reasons for that. One is every individual has a certain need. The artists have a need to personify the kala and the art and the music and what have you. So Saraswati is the deity for the artists. The Hanuman is the deity for the wrestlers because they want to personalize or manifest Brahman into something very powerful. Ganesh is considered to be the deity for the wisdom. So there are deities, a lot of number of deities, but essentially to make life easier for the children or the next generation, I say, basically there are trinity of deities in India, in Hinduism. There's Brahma, which is the creator. There's Vishnu, which is the sustainer. And there is Shiva, which is the transformer. By the way, my request to you is never ever call Shiva destroyer because it has a very negative implication. Shiva transforms. Consciousness like energy cannot be destroyed. So Shiva essentially transforms your consciousness from one body into the other body. And I start calling Shiva a transformer. And all of these deities have consorts or wives or spouses, which are equally or many times more powerful than the deities themselves, Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati. And they have the vehicles, Hamsa, Garuda, and Nandi. And you all know about this. So all of our deities basically fit into one of these categories. They are either children, grandchildren of any one of these deities, or they are coming out of a combination of these deities. For instance, the very famous Ayyappa in the south is a child of Vishnu and Shiva through the Mohini roop of Vishnu when he danced in front of the Shiva. It's a long story, you can read it up. But what I'm saying is that makes life a little bit easier to understand that ultimately all of these deities whom we pray to are either children uh, or siblings of one of these deities, which is Brahma, Vishnu, or Mahesh. And they are classified as creator, sustainer, or transformer. There's a rich mythology we all know, and I really enjoyed. There's a lot of number of stories, and it's fun to read those stories. Om. Om is another term for Brahman. It's the Shabda Brahma or the Nada Brahma. So what is the takeaway? Takeaway is there's only one God. That's the universal consciousness. Different religions, and we do believe that different religions may call it by different names, but there is only one God. It is not a polytheistic religion like people think, but we have different deities. And Brahman is non-judgmental. This is very difficult to fathom even for our own Hindu people, but it is true. You cannot get an A plus in the next day's math test by praying to Ganesha because for that you have to study hard. Then when you pray to Ganesha, you pray to Ganesh to get the peace of mind so that you can remember all what you've studied, not because he's going to help you. Ultimately, it's your karma which matters, and that is a very important message which a lot of people miss. And respect, since there is only one God or one supreme consciousness, then and if they may call it by different name, then that's why we respect all religions. So you will never see a Hindu uh, desecrate any of the other places of worship. They will not, they may ignore it, but they will not desecrate it, unlike some other religions. So that gives us that tolerance, that acceptance that okay, people may be praying in a different way, but there's ultimately only one Brahman or one God. Advaita or Atman Brahman non-duality. This is very important because we all know that we are a combination of body and soul. Soul is a very loose word I'm using for individual consciousness, or we call it Atman. So I'm going to use Atman, soul, and self all interchangeably because they are kind of synonymous for the sake of simplicity. A lot of purists, when I make presentations, a lot of purists come to me and point out some finer details. And I say that, uh, uh, we are looking at overall general communication so that, the people understand there is a finer difference between soul and Atman. But for the sake of our conversation, soul, Atman, and self are being interchangeably used. You are a combination of body and soul. We all know that. And the discovery of the soul is the discovery of God. Because Brahman is universal consciousness, and part of that Brahman is inside you, which is called Atman. So this Atman Brahman non-duality makes it you also have that God. If you want to call Brahman God, you have God or divinity inside you. And as such, once you discover yourself, or the self-discovery is the discovery of God. That's why the greeting Namaste, we all know the meaning of Namaste. I pray to the divinity inside you. And the response is, I pray or I bow to the divinity inside you. So what is the takeaway? Since divinity resides in you, you are capable of doing everything or anything you want. You have a great potential, but it ain't going to happen because divinity does not do it. It's your karma which does it. So as long as you put your efforts, you are capable. So you have the potential to do whatever you want to do. That is the message. What a fantastic message. And in this context, I want to quote one shlok. If you want to teach one shlok to your children, this shlok from the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Uddhare datma atmanam datmanam vasadaye, atmaiva yatmano bandhur, atmaiva ripuratmana. You are your own enemy, you are your own friend. So pick yourself with bootstraps and fight. That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. And beautiful, very, very encouraging, very upbeat shlok. And that is what the message of Bhagavad Gita is, that you are your own friend. You can make your own future. Have faith in yourself, be self-confident. And this, but also remember that the same God, if we believe that divinity, which is Brahman, resides in all of us, then where divinity also resides in the people we interact with. So the same God resides in others too. So that is why we respect others. So what a beautiful message of respect to the others. And this is a message of universal brotherhood. Universality of soul. This Atman, or this part of divinity, part of Brahman, which is called Atman, not only resides within human beings, but it also resides within all other living things. And many people believe that in non-living things in the dormant stage. So the whole universe has the essence of the Brahman, and as a result, we are all connected to each other through the Brahman Atman non-duality or universality of soul. And that is why the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And that is when we are blessed to be a lot more mature, I would like to think, than the rest of the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. So it is our responsibility to be the custodians of the environment. If we start thinking like that, if we had thought about that, we wouldn't have been raping the earth that we have done in the past. We would be a lot more careful about the climate change and the environment going forward. What a fantastic message of environmentalism embedded and built into our religion or our faith. And this message has to go to our next generation. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Not only universal brotherhood, but universal family. Be sensitive to all living things. They're related to you. Respect nature and its laws. And environmental awareness is embedded in our faith. So the third was universality of soul. So I covered the Brahman, universal consciousness. Second, Atman, Brahman, non-duality. Part of that Brahman is inside you, which is called Atman. And the third one was universality of soul. It's also in animals and plants. And why is it important to, let me go back. Why is it important to establish that universality of soul? Because Abrahamic religion, again, this is only for the comparison reason. Abrahamic religions do not believe that animals and plants have soul. Only humans have it. Adam and Eve, God created the rest of the environment for Adam and Eve to enjoy. Some people say exploit. And that is why there is no, the level of sensitivity that a Hindu has for the environment, for the animals. I'm saying sensitivity, that does not make you completely give up all meat eating or anything of that sort, but sensitivity is different than killing people and animals and plants willy-nilly. So anyway, the long and short of it is a major difference in the approach to the environment between the Abrahamic religions and the Dharma religions. And Dharma religions are all of Hinduism being the mother of the religion, but the rest are the ones which I mentioned: Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. Law of karma. This is probably one of the least understood and most misinterpreted. Law of karma. Karma says that you reap as you sow, and karma is a deed or an action. Since the soul is indestructible, after the body perishes, the soul takes rebirth into another body. This is the transmigration of soul. And soul is a part of Brahman. Brahman is universal consciousness. So it's called, and that's why it's indestructible. And it's called the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And that is called samsara or reincarnation. So it is the ability of to shape your life in this life. Future life depends upon your karma. This is where the beta tere haath mein kya hai, pichle janam ke karm ka phal hai. Yes and no. Yes, because it's partially true. No, because it is not totally true. There are three types of karmas. Actually, according to Gita Rahasya, there is essentially sanchita karma, which is the karma which you have brought from the past life. However, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to divvy it up between three different segments. One is the prarabdha karma, one is sanchita karma, and one is kriyaman or agami karma. Prarabdha karma is the karma which has been inherited from the previous life, but which has already come to fruition. Which family is your Atma born, how tall you're going to be, what color your eyes are going to be, whether you're going to keep your hair at the age of 25 or 30 or not, how tall, how fat you're going to be, what skin color you're going to be. All of that is predetermined. We do not have much control over that. Sanchita karma, so we'll call this prarabdha karma for the sake of our discussion. Sanchita karma is the karma which you have brought from the previous life, but can be changed. Some people are so musically talented that they have never taken a single piano lesson, but they listen to the music and they can play. They can listen to the music and they can play harmonium. And they have the innate talent or knack to play. But that does not mean, if I don't have that, that does not mean that I cannot sing or I cannot play piano or I cannot play music. I just have to practice. So Shastras say that if you, Sanchita karma allows you, but your tapa and abhyas, study and discipline will allow you to acquire those qualities which you may not have inherited. And so Sanchita karma is that dormant talent which you may or may not have or have different type. And Kriyaman karma is the karma which you are doing now, which will fetch results either in this life or will get carried over as Sanchita and Prarabdha for the next life. And the Kriyaman karma, for example, you study well in high school, you go to a good school, you get a good education, and you get a good job, you lead a happy and nice life. That is all a part of the Kriyaman karma. So Kriyaman is completely in your hand. Sanchita can be changed through discipline and tapa and abhyas, or discipline and practice. Prarabdha is the only one which is predetermined. That's one out of the three karmas that are predetermined. The two are changeable. Does that make it fatalistic? Hell no. Hinduism is not fatalistic. And the one third, which is Allah, which you have to accept, it gives you the equanimity of thought to accept it as it is. I'm reminded of that serenity prayer, which is assigned to Father St. Francis of Assisi, that God give me the courage to change what I can, the serenity to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to distinguish between the two. Bhagavad Gita says that prarabdha is prarabdha, accept it as it is. But sanchita you can change. Kriyaman you can change. And for that, uddharedatma atmanam, the same shloka I just mentioned. Pick yourself and fight. Pick yourself and do what needs to be done if you want to change that. So it is not fatalistic, not at all fatalistic. What is the takeaway for our next generation? Accept who you are. I'll give you an example, an anecdote. Somebody was trying to tell me in the question and answer at one of the lectures I had in high schools. The kid came to me, he's an Indian kid, and said, I wish I was 6'2" so I can dunk a basketball. I said, buddy, your dad is 5'2" and your mom is 4'11". You ain't gonna be 6'2". But you're smart. You can do a lot of other things. Accept who you are. Focus on your strength and decide on your path. And that is the message of Bhagavad Gita. That is the message of the Shruti literature. Believe that all happenings are a result of your actions. Karma. You reap as you sow. Don't dwell on negative happenings. You will always get another chance because we are coming back again and again. With that, we covered the 4 top concepts. It's been almost an hour. So I'm going to wrap up by saying the next 3 stars are the path of intellect, path of devotion, and path of action. So Karma Yoga we will cover next month, next lecture. We'll cover the Bhakti Yoga after that, and Jnana Yoga. And I have lots of anecdotes from basketball and baseball for the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So these are some of the characteristics of the paths, but we will save that for individual lectures that I'm going to conduct. And Patanjali's Raj Yoga we will touch upon as and when time permits. Which path to take? The beauty of Hinduism is you are not restricted to one path. You can mix and customize everything. So customize your path, and you can keep changing that depending upon the status in your life. I put this chart together because some of you asked me that can you show us comparison between the 2 religious groups, Dharma group and Abrahamic group. And as a result, I made an effort to put this thing together. Dharma group comprises of Hinduism, Sikhism, and I put down Buddhism and Jainism because they are indeed a part of the Dharma group, and their many concepts are the same, but there are some they don't believe. They don't believe in a God or a Brahman. They do believe in reincarnation. They do believe in law of karma, and they basically feel that the saints are the ones they worship basically. So I put them in the bracket, but they are all together as Dharma group. And Abrahamic group is Judaism, Christianity, Islam. one God, both, all of them believe in one God. After that, the differences are almost diametrically opposite. Whereas in Hinduism, we believe in non-duality. In other words, Brahman and Atman are the same. Part of Brahman is in me, part of Brahman is everyone. In Abrahamic religions, God is different than you. And in between is the Son of God in case of Christianity, Prophet Muhammad in terms of Islam, and you can never be God. In fact, Al-Hilaj, who was the Sufi saint in the 8th century, while doing his prayers, he got into trance and said, Anahul Haq. That means I sensed Allah in me. That was considered to be blasphemy. So God is not, you cannot have God in you. Whereas all our saints, all our Santalok have said that why are you looking for God elsewhere? It's inside you. Big 180 degrees difference. Um, Believe in the indestructibility of the soul, universality of soul. Hindus believe that the same Atma resides in animals and plants, and the Abrahamic religions believe humans have a soul, animals and plants are inferior, and so they don't have souls. Path of course, the reincarnation, multiple lives versus only one life to live, and either you go to heaven or hell or purgatory. And then, of course, in Hinduism, this path of intellect, Jnana Yoga, you can head for mukti or liberation through Jnana Yoga, through Bhakti Yoga, through Karma Yoga, combination of all three. Whereas in Abrahamic religions, bhakti is the only way. In fact, Christians believe that you have to surrender to Jesus in order to go to heaven. Otherwise, the gates of heaven are not open to you. You may have done everything good for the humanity, but in fact, people have commented that even Gandhiji has no chance of going to heaven because he has not surrendered to Jesus. So big difference. And again, once again, I'm not going to say one is better or worse. It's up to you to decide. But these are the comparison between the religions. So last slide, last two slides. Peaceful world, one universal consciousness for all, universal brotherhood, Atman, Brahman, non-duality, environmentalism, self-determination. This is probably Hinduism talks about self-determination because there ain't no free lunch in Hinduism. You got to do work to get what you want. And we are the custodians of the earth, multiple paths to liberation, and respect the multiple approaches of the faiths. So what are the 7 stars of Hinduism? I said you would be able to articulate and explain. Well, Brahman, one God, Atman, Brahman, non-duality, a universality of soul, law of karma, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. For the younger people, the path of intellect, devotion, and action. So here is the acronym. Anytime you want to remember something, you need to have an acronym. So acronyms, I will give you one God, Atman, Brahman, non-duality, universality of soul, law of karma, path of intellect, path of devotion, path of action. A for Atman, Brahman, non-duality or Advaita. S for universality of soul, animals, plants having the soul. K for law of karma. I for path of intellect. DE for path of devotion. And A for the path of action. That spells idea. Ask God idea. Ask God idea. If you look at it, one God, ask, Advaita, non-duality, soul, universality of soul, K, law of karma, path of intellect, I, path of devotion, D, poetic license there, and A for action, ask God idea. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, um, I put together some a small little booklet, which is which includes all many of these slides and the details. So what I will do is talk to our friend Aniruddha Bakre and organize so that you can get a copy of that. It is for a donation of $5 each, if you can, so that I can continue this effort for my on my non with my nonprofit. But I will talk to Aniruddha and organize it there. With that, I am done and I'm open for Q&A. Thank you. Aniruddha, if you can hear me, you can take the control or you can have dual control.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much, Dilip Kaka. It was a really eye-opening and inspiring to hear this religious talk. But I won't say it's a religious talk because it has um, a touch of the science and a touch of the reality, and to understand what exactly is the Hinduism, and particularly the acronym at the end, Ask God idea. That is really helpful. And definitely, we're looking out for your future lectures on the uh, law of karma and intellectual path to intellectual and devotion. So definitely, that's thank you so much. So what I can say is now that the floor is open for the question answer session.